Close your eyes for a second and just imagine the sound of a neighborhood.
Okay, I'm with you.
So if you and I were standing in Montreal's southwest, right, specifically in the historic sector of Pointe-Saint-Charles,
Right.
say, I don't know, 30 or 40 years ago,
Right.
the soundtrack of that area would have been absolutely unmistakable.
Oh, completely. It was deafening.
Yeah. You would be hearing the heavy, grinding gears of industrial machinery. You'd hear, like, the clanking of sheet metal, the deep rumble of freight trains.
Just the sheer acoustic weight of heavy industry pressing down on the street.
Exactly. I mean, for generations, that was a place entirely defined by factories, manufacturing, and, blue-collar labor.
It was basically the industrial engine of the city. Unapologetically utilitarian, highly functional, and, as you said, extremely loud.
Super loud.
And the architecture reflected that, too, Massive brick warehouses, wide loading docks, spaces built for machines, really, rather than leisure.
But if you go stand in those exact same spots today, the sensory experience is completely inverted.
It's a completely different world.
The grinding metal is totally gone. Instead, the dominant sound is the clatter of plates in open kitchens. You hear the hum of people talking on outdoor terraces.
The clinking of wine glasses.
Right. And just the vibrant, bustling energy of these neighborhood gourmet markets.
Yeah.
And the report we're looking at today paints a picture of this total fundamental transformation.
Yeah, the authors of this report present a really fascinating argument. They're saying this isn't just a superficial facelift.
It's not just gentrification aesthetics.
No, not at all. It's not a case where someone just, slapped a coat of paint over old brick. The report argues that we are looking at a fundamental rewiring of how a specific urban space functions.
Economically and socially.
Exactly. Both of those levels simultaneously.
And that rewiring is what we're exploring today. So welcome to the deep dive. We are looking at a comprehensive report on the urban requalification of Pointe-Saint-Charles.
It's a really dense, fascinating piece of research.
It is. And our mission for this deep dive is to figure out a puzzle. How exactly does a neighborhood take these massive abandoned industrial spaces and turn them into booming economic hubs through gastronomy?
And, crucially, do it without losing its soul.
Yes. Or pushing out the historic residents who actually, live there and built the community.
Because the source material really positions this as an attempt to avoid the classic trap of urban redevelopment.
Which we see everywhere.
Right. In so many cities, the pattern is entirely predictable. You get the fancy artisan markets, then property values spike, and the historic residents get the boot.
They get priced out immediately.
Yeah. But this report details a blueprint that the authors claim actively engineers a very different outcome.
Okay, let's unpack this.
Yeah.
Because before we get into the money and the specific architectural projects, we really have to establish the why.
The driving force.
Yeah, like why are people suddenly flocking to a former heavy industry zone in the first place? And according to the report, it all comes down to redefining proximity.
It's about building what urban planners are calling the 15-minute city.
Right.
And the 15-minute city is a concept that has gained, massive traction in urban planning circles over the last few years.
It's everywhere now.
It is. And the authors really highlight Pointe-Saint-Charles as a real-world laboratory testing the limits of this idea.
So think about your own morning routine for a second, right? Think about your morning commute today.
Oh, boy.
Did you have to cross 3 distinct neighborhoods? Or, get on a highway just to get to a decent grocery store or your office?
For a lot of people listening, the answer is absolutely yes.
Now think about your smartphone. If your phone is set up perfectly, everything you need, your messages, your camera, your bank app, your maps, it's all right there on the home screen.
Yeah, just organized perfectly.
Exactly. It's just one quick swipe away. You don't have to dig through endless menus to find what you want. Well, the 15-minute city is essentially that perfectly organized smartphone home screen, but applied to your physical life.
Oh, I love that analogy.
Right. High-quality food, your workspace, your leisure activities, your essential services, they aren't an hour-long commute away. They are just a short walk or a quick bike ride from your front door.
That analogy actually gets right to the heart of what the report is discussing. It's all about intentional design.
And eliminating friction.
Exactly. From an analytical perspective, the authors point out that this is meeting a glaring modern demand. We aren't just talking about a slight increase in convenience here.
No, it's a total lifestyle shift.
The report frames this as a fundamental shift in how people actually want to structure their lives. Young professionals, families, creators, they're actively seeking out these hybrid living environments.
Because the old model is just exhausting.
Yeah, the desire to commute to some sterile downtown office district for 8 hours only to commute back to an equally sterile residential suburb. I mean, that desire is dropping rapidly. People want the mix.
And Pointe-Saint-Charles happens to have like the perfect raw materials to create that mix. The report highlights the strategic location as the baseline.
Location is everything.
Right. So first, you've got the banks of the Lachine Canal right there, which offers this immediate green space and recreational pathways.
Huge asset.
Then you have incredible public transit access with the Charlevoix and LaSalle metro stations, which makes these micro-destinations highly viable.
Because you don't have to build massive parking lots.
Exactly. You don't need to own a car to get there, and you certainly don't need one to live there.
And the report really emphasizes that public transit accessibility is the catalyst here. It's the mechanism that takes a quaint local hotspot and turns it into a viable economic engine.
Which then drives the housing market.
Right, which in turn propels the demand for the residential real estate market in the area.
And the real estate itself is a huge part of the draw. We're talking about magnificent heritage transformations.
The developers aren't just coming in, tearing down the old factories and throwing up generic glass boxes.
No, thankfully. The report details how they are converting these massive former industrial lofts and factories into living spaces. And architecturally, that gives the area a unique charm that you literally cannot replicate with new construction.
You really can't fake a 100-year-old brick wall.
No, you can't. It has a specific weight to it.
And the preservation of that industrial heritage provides the aesthetic and historical grounding that makes the 15-minute city feel authentic to its residents.
Authentic is the perfect word.
But, beautiful brickwork and a nearby subway stop don't automatically pay the bills. If you successfully build this highly desirable 15-minute lifestyle, you have to look at the underlying financial structure.
Right, because if you're pulling people away from downtown, you're also pulling their wallets.
Exactly. What's fascinating here is how the report tracks this lifestyle shift, completely reorganizing the local economy.
It's shifting the center of gravity.
The authors point to a massive, measurable trend of commercial decentralization.
Commercial decentralization, meaning the neighborhood is pulling the economic center of gravity away from the traditional downtown core.
Under the traditional model of city living, you slept in your neighborhood, but you went downtown to spend your money.
You bought your morning coffee near your office.
Right. You went to high-end dining in the commercial district. You did your specialized shopping in massive retail hubs. The downtown core captured all that capital.
Like a giant vacuum.
But the report argues that the arrival of these gourmet markets and local shops in Pointe-Saint-Charles is pulling foot traffic, and therefore capital, outside of those traditional arteries.
Think of local neighborhood commerce like a pinball machine.
Okay, I'm listening.
If you're living in a commuter suburb, the moment you get paid, that money is like the pinball dropping straight down the drain into a corporate headquarters or a downtown commercial center.
Right, it's gone immediately.
But what the report is describing is a circular economy. In this setup, the local businesses act like the flippers on the pinball machine.
Oh, I see.
They keep the money bouncing around the board, racking up points for the neighborhood. When you have these mixed-use buildings where people live upstairs, work in a shared space on the second floor, and buy their artisanal bread or grab a coffee downstairs, the capital stays within the neighborhood itself.
The authors of the report note that the circulation of capital is significantly boosting the market value of the area.
Because it's not leaking out.
Exactly. It creates a self-sustaining ecosystem. Instead of a single transaction where the money leaves the community, $1 spent at the local bakery might go to pay the wages of a local resident,
Who then spends it at the local hardware store and so on.
And the report notes that this self-sustaining nature is exactly what is catching the eye of major investors.
Why do investors care about that local circulation so much?
It provides a buffer. The report suggests that investors are drawn to the sustainability of these localized business models because they are insulated.
Insulated from what exactly?
Well, an economy based on a circular 15-minute city model is much more robust against macro-level shocks.
Oh, like a sudden crash in the downtown office real estate market.
Precisely. Compared to a business relying entirely on thousands of commuters showing up every day, this model is much safer for capital.
Okay, so The report lays out the theory beautifully. We have the 15-minute city lifestyle driving demand, and we have the circular economy acting as the pinball flippers, keeping the cash local.
But theories only take us so far.
Exactly. But the source material actually gives us the receipts.
A very detailed case study.
Here's where it gets really interesting. The report details a massive concrete example of this entire philosophy currently in action.
The Blueprint Project.
Yes, a project called LesHallesdesAteliersdelaPointe.
And the scale of this specific project really tests the limits of the circular economy theory.
Let's look at the hard numbers in the report because they are staggering. The project involves taking a massive former railway warehouse and converting it into a gourmet market and what the report calls a biofood incubator.
The report relies heavily on that term.
Yeah, a biofood incubator. Sounds like a lab.
It's not just a fancy phrase for a kitchen, though. The authors explain that it functions essentially like a tech startup accelerator, but for food entrepreneurs.
Wait, really? How does that work?
It provides shared commercial kitchen space, cold storage, and business mentorship to local chefs or food producers, people who might have a brilliant product but lack the massive upfront capital required to lease and outfit their own standalone restaurant.
Oh, wow. So it's lowering the barrier to entry for local talent to actually participate in this booming gastronomy scene.
Exactly. It democratizes the food scene.
And the timeline for getting this up and running is moving incredibly fast. According to the documents, acquisition and decontamination of the site happened in late 2024.
Which is a huge hurdle on its own.
Yeah. Then the massive renovation work kicks off in the spring of 2025. And the grand public inauguration is already scheduled for the fall of 2026.
Honestly, for an urban requalification of a heavy industrial site, navigating the environmental decontamination alone usually stalls projects for years.
So that timeline is really aggressive.
Extremely aggressive.
And it comes with a serious price tag. The report outlines an allocated budget of $18.5 million.
A huge investment.
But a really compelling detail is that $3.2 million of that budget comes from grants specifically earmarked for energy efficiency and preserving the built heritage.
And the mechanics of that are incredibly complex.
Because it's an old building.
Right. Retrofitting a 19th century railway warehouse to meet modern green standards without destroying its historic designation is a massive architectural hurdle.
You can't just slap solar panels everywhere and call it a day.
Exactly. The report notes these funds are used to install high-efficiency HVAC systems and modern thermal insulation in a way that doesn't compromise the exposed and structural beams.
The very things that give the building its value in the first place.
Precisely. You have to thread the needle.
And they are going to need those heavy-duty HVAC systems because the projected foot traffic is wild. In year one alone, the report anticipates 850,000 annual visitors.
Nearly 1 million people filtering through a single requalified warehouse.
It's massive. During the summer, they expect 12,000 people per weekend.
That's a staggering density.
And a huge driver of that, according to the data, is the cycling flow along the Lachine Canal. The canal used to be an industrial shipping route, but it's now this massive recreational pathway.
And they are actively tapping into that existing infrastructure.
Yeah. The authors frame that as the ultimate synergy in urban planning. You have a massive existing flow of people using the canal for recreation, and you place a high-value culinary destination right in their path.
It's brilliant placement.
And the economic impacts of capturing that traffic are detailed clearly. The project is set to create 150 direct jobs, driven by the opening of 22 permanent stalls and 3 farm-to-table restaurants inside the complex.
And the city benefits too.
Right. The increased commercial property tax revenues for the borough aren't just disappearing into a general municipal fund.
Where do they go?
The report states they are specifically slated to be reinvested into the greening of adjacent alleyways.
Oh, that's clever.
The success of the commercial space literally pays for the residential streets around it to become greener and more pleasant.
It reads like a perfect ecosystem.
It does. But, and I have to pause here, I'm reading the projections later in the report, and I really have to push back on this.
Let's hear the correction.
The report states that real estate appreciation within a 500-meter radius of this project is projected to jump 12 to 15% in value by 2028.
That is a significant jump.
We are talking about farm-to-table restaurants, biofood incubators, property values shooting up 15%, nearly 1 million visitors showing up to buy artisanal goods.
It sounds familiar.
Right. You just listed the textbook recipe for exclusionary gentrification.
I mean, if I am a historic resident who has lived in Pointe-Saint-Charles my whole life, a 15% property value jump means my rent just priced me out of my own neighborhood.
It's a very real threat. How is this not just a story of wealthy developers displacing the working class under the guise of gastronomy?
The authors of the report anticipate that exact criticism. They acknowledge that, historically, your concern is entirely validated.
Because it happens every time.
Usually when capital moves in, the historic residents are forced out. But if we connect this to the bigger picture,
Okay.
the report argues that this specific project was structurally engineered from day one to act as an anti-gentrification model.
Structurally engineered. I mean, how do you structurally engineer a market to not act like a market?
The report claims it comes down to the mechanics of ownership and decision-making power.
Who actually holds the keys?
Exactly. LesHallesdesAteliersdelaPointe isn't owned by some faceless, distant hedge fund maximizing profit at all costs. The ownership model is a co-development.
What does that mean in practice?
The documents detail a partnership between the Urban Requalification Real Estate Fund, the URF, and a citizen cooperative called LaPointe Gourmet.
A citizen cooperative.
Yes. And the whole thing is backed by financial support from the City of Montreal's commercial revitalization program.
Wait, a citizen cooperative? Does that mean the people who live down the street are literally sitting in a boardroom voting on whether a massive international coffee chain is allowed to move in and replace a local vendor?
The report explains that this hybrid private cooperative model legally ensures exactly that.
That's incredible.
The historic residents of Pointe-Saint-Charles retain a seat at the table through the cooperative. They have a direct, legally binding say over the commercial leases.
So they can block bad actors.
Exactly. They can curate the space to ensure the businesses serve the existing community, deliberately blocking the kind of exclusionary corporate takeover that usually follows gentrification.
That is a massive transfer of power. I mean, you rarely see community groups given actual veto power over commercial real estate.
It's incredibly rare. But the report goes further than just vendor curation, doesn't it?
It does. The authors highlight that the structural design of the space itself guarantees social inclusion. For example, food security is written right into the DNA of the project.
That's a bold claim. How so?
15% of the floor space in the complex is legally reserved for a solidarity market.
A solidarity market, how does that function alongside, high-end restaurants?
The report details that this dedicated 15% of the space is used to sell fresh produce at cost price, specifically targeted for low-income households in the neighborhood.
Because food deserts are a huge problem in gentrifying areas.
Exactly. The only food available suddenly becomes prohibitively expensive. You can't buy basic groceries anymore, just $50 artisanal olive oil.
So they are selling produce at cost. How does the building survive financially if 15% of its footprint isn't turning a profit?
The authors explain this through the economics of cross-subsidization.
Cross-subsidization.
Yeah. The high-end culinary tourism, the farm-to-table restaurants paying premium commercial rent, they effectively subsidize the footprint of the solidarity market.
Oh, that makes sense.
It's a mechanism that proves the neighborhood doesn't have to choose between economic revitalization and taking care of its vulnerable populations.
The report argues you can engineer both into the exact same financial blueprint.
So, if you've ever paid a premium for a fancy dinner in a trendy neighborhood, under this model, you're essentially helping to fund the at-cost groceries for the historic resident living down the street.
It's a direct transfer of value.
Yeah. You might have a tourist coming off the Lachine Canal to buy an expensive artisanal cheese right next to a family buying their weekly fresh vegetables for a couple of bucks.
And the authors point out that this social engineering extends outside the walls of the warehouse as well.
Right into the streets.
The project blueprint includes the creation of a 15,000 square foot pedestrian public square right in front of the complex.
15,000 square feet in a major city is an enormous footprint to just, give away.
It is. But the report emphasizes that it is designed to serve as a venue for free cultural programming.
Like what kind of programming?
Local concerts, community markets, public art. It becomes a guaranteed, highly subsidized gathering space for everyone in the neighborhood.
Regardless of their income level.
Exactly. Regardless of whether they spend a single dollar inside the gourmet market, they have a right to that space.
Looking at the mechanics of the ownership model and the cross-subsidization really shifts the perspective on this.
It reframes the whole project.
Yeah, the report is framing this not as a commercial invasion, but as a heavily negotiated community asset.
The authors use this case study to argue a broader point about urban planning. They're saying gentrification is not a law of physics.
It's not inevitable.
No, it is the result of choices. This hybrid model attempts to show how rare yet incredibly vital it is to deliberately engineer social cohesion into the legal and financial foundation of a real estate project.
So what does this all mean? When we zoom out from LesHallesdesAteliersdelaPointe, what is the ultimate lesson the report is trying to leave us with?
It seems the authors are trying to prove a concept that a lot of cynics would say is impossible.
That you can have your cake and eat it too, basically.
Basically, yeah. They're arguing that you can successfully combine private real estate development, the preservation of an area's industrial heritage, and the strengthening of the local economy all at once.
And the report argues this can be achieved while actively protecting the community that was already there.
Yes, protecting them from displacement.
Requalification through gastronomy, at least based on the mechanics outlined in this Montreal case study, doesn't just feed the body.
No, it does much more than that.
It nourishes the entire social and economic fabric of the neighborhood by keeping capital local, providing jobs, and structurally protecting low-income residents.
The report presents this as a blueprint that every major city grappling with abandoned industrial spaces should really be studying.
And that brings us to you, listening right now. Think about your own city or the neighborhood you live in.
Take a look around during your next walk or commute.
Do you live in a 15-minute city? Are the things you need a short walk away?
And when new development happens, when the old warehouses get turned into trendy markets.
Right. Are those projects functioning like a pinball machine, keeping capital in your neighborhood? Or are they just pushing historic residents out to make room for commuter dollars?
The source material raises a really provocative question when you look at the mechanics of this success.
What's that?
Well, if giving historic residents decision-making power through a citizen cooperative is the ultimate shield against exclusionary gentrification.
Right, if that's the magic bullet.
Should this hybrid ownership model be a legal requirement?
Oh, wow.
The report really makes you wonder, should every future commercial requalification project in a major city be forced by law to adopt a private cooperative model?
Mandating a citizen cooperative by law for every private development, that would completely upend how city planning works.
It sounds ideal for the community, but the counterargument is obvious.
Which is?
Would forcing that level of community control, legally mandating that 15% of prime commercial space be sold at cost, scare away the very 18.5 million private investments that are required to save these heritage buildings in the first place?
That is a really tough question.
The report highlights a delicate, incredibly tense balance between demanding social equity and attracting the massive capital needed to revitalize decaying infrastructure.
That is a brilliant tension to leave our listeners with. Because at the end of the day, you need the capital to fix a roof and install the green HVAC systems.
But you need the community's legal leverage to ensure the building actually feels like home.
It's a fascinating balancing act, and one that the report suggests Pointe-Saint-Charles is currently pulling off.
They're making it work.
Which means the next time you hear the clatter of a lively terrace and the hum of an open kitchen where heavy machinery used to grind, you'll know to look a little closer at who actually holds the lease.
There is an entire economic and social engine at work behind every artisanal loaf of bread.
Thank you for joining us on this deep dive. Keep looking closely at the spaces around you. Keep questioning the mechanics of how your city works, and we will catch you on the next deep dive.
Thanks for listening. Keep connecting the dots.